Hello, welcome to this masterclass on the phonics screening check. Please do say hello in the chat. Let me know where you're joining us from. Let me know that you can see me, that you can hear me, that I'm not just waffling on to myself. And if you could let me know that you can see what says Phonics Screen Booster Masterclass on the screen as well, that would be great, just so I know I'm not sharing the wrong thing accidentally. But yes, hello. I'm going to pop through a quick intro and we'll get started properly. I'm Jen. If you haven't met me before, my job is to help you help your kids learn to read at home. I love doing these workshops. This is actually my second favourite workshop that I run throughout the year, and it is so lovely to see you here today. Thank you for taking the time to come and join me. I know it's halfway through the Easter holidays, so doubly thank you for taking the time out to come and join me. I hope the little ones got to bed all right and that you've had a lovely first week off as well. So I've put together this masterclass to help you understand what the phonics screen check is and how you can help your child prepare for it as well. I often get asked about this check throughout the year and what you can do as parents to help your children prepare for this. So I'm going to go through a few of the basics now, and at the end I will go through the Phonics Check Club as well and how you can use it to support your child. I know some of you currently aren't members, but feel free to stick around at the end and see if you'll find it useful as well. As always, this came out of a suggestion from the Parents of the Raising Readers community, which is the membership that I run, so thank you guys very much for that as well. So in general, the people who join me for these sessions fall into one of three categories. I would absolutely love to know why you've joined today. All you have to do is pop a 1, a 2 or a 3 in the comments in the chat box, which I can see and it does exist. So do feel free to comment as we go. So number 1, the first reason is people are here because your child is in either year 1 or year 2 and you're worried about their reading. Number 2, you want your child to feel confident when they take the phonics screen check, which is happening the week beginning 9th of June. Or 3, your child isn't in year 1 yet, but you want to be prepared for when they are. We've got a lot of 2s coming in, we've got some 3s, amazing, brilliant. Hi, Valley. If you have a different reason as well, I would love to hear that too. Please do pop it in, let me know. But whatever your reason is for being here, I'm here to support you. We will make sure that you leave this session feeling really confident about it. Equally, if you're watching on the replay, just to say to anyone who isn't here right now, you can always message me, always email me with any questions that you have, and I will respond as soon as I possibly can. So I'm going to show you exactly how to support your child both emotionally and academically in these 8 weeks leading up to the phonics screen check, so that they go into it feeling really confident and ready to show exactly what they know. But first, I'm going to start, for anyone who doesn't know me, with a very brief bit about me so we can get all of that boring stuff out of the way and you know where I'm coming from and that I do actually know what I'm talking about. So I originally trained about 10 years ago now as an EYFS teacher. EYFS is early years foundation stage, so that's nursery and reception. Since then, I've taught nursery to year 2, so I was trained in all the others, but that was my specialism. And I discovered that I actually fell in love with year 1. That's my favourite year group. I love it. It's where my heart is, and it's where I have taught for most of the years through my own choice. I now have a specialism in phonics and early literacy, so that's what I focus on. I love teaching reading and I love teaching writing. I have an average phonics screen pass rate of 92%. The average last year across the country was 80%. I don't like teaching my own horn, but I think it's relevant for you to know that I do this a lot. I have done the phonics screen a lot, and I'm very used to supporting children to show their best in these exams as well. I actually left full-time teaching last year. I still teach part-time. But I left because I wanted to start supporting parents more fully, because the impact that you have on your child is so much greater than anything I can achieve in the classroom. So I wanted to make sure that I can enable as many parents as possible to feel empowered by that and feel like you can support your kids and that it's not some huge, terrifying thing to do. In fact, it can be done through games and activities. You just need to be given those activities, which is what I do. So now I run courses and workshops in my wonderful membership, the Raising Readers community, which is all around supporting parents with their kids' education. So let's go over the basics of the phonics screen check. This is an assessment that the government brought in 2012, so 13 years ago now, and it is based entirely around synthetic phonics. Synthetic phonics is the functional skill of reading. It's the ability to look at letters, recognise the sounds that they make, and put the sounds together to read words. That's it. Our kids are shown 40 words, ranging from easy to hard, which I'll go over in a lot more detail in a moment, and then they have to read them. That's it. That's all the check is. It's a really good way to identify which children have grasped the process of reading and which children will need more help next year. It's also really useful for us teachers because we can use it throughout the year to structure our phonics lessons and focus on the areas that our kids are finding trickier as well. However, synthetic phonics does not cover all areas of reading. It's just a really, really small part of it. Specifically, it's the part that involves recognizing the sounds and blending them together. So that is phonemic awareness and phonics. It doesn't touch on understanding, vocabulary, fluency, awareness of tricky words, or anything like that, any of the broader range of reading. It literally only focuses on reading the words themselves. So while the check is a good way to assess whether our kids understand how to read words, so the function of it, it is not the be all and end all of reading. I've had kids who have passed the phonics screen check who I would not personally class as confident readers because they struggle to understand what they've read. They might struggle with certain tricky words. So I wouldn't call them confident readers when they leave me in year one. And equally, I've had kids who have struggled with the phonics screen check who read much more confidently in context. They may struggle with alien words, they may struggle with blending longer words together and working out what the real words are without context. Whereas actually, if I gave them a relatively tricky chapter book, they'd be able to read pretty much every single word in it and explain what's happened and answer questions about it, simply because they have a more holistic variation of reading. So today we are going to focus on how to support your child with this check, but I just wanted to put out here, I wanted to put this in here so I can point out that there is more to reading than just recognising those words. And I know we've got a couple of my Raising Readers community members in here. So as you know, when we are in the membership, we do loads and loads of stuff around all areas, not just the phonemic awareness and the phonics. But now that I've had my little rant, let's move on to a few common worries. So first is what this is to our kids. This is the first formal assessment that your child will face. They have done in reception the reception baseline assessment, but most kids will not have had any idea that they've done that. It's done on a one-to-one basis with the teacher in the classroom. The kids maybe get called over at some point during the first 8 weeks of school. They sit down, they do a couple of activities with the teacher. You know, they don't have to do it at a certain time. They don't have to do it all in one go. They can take breaks. Great. It isn't formal in any way, and it's designed not so that our kids don't know that it's happening. However, for our phonics screen check, our kids go to a different room. They go on their own, normally with their teacher or with the English lead from the school, and then they do a test, and they're much more aware that this is going on. Now, I know this sounds really stressful, and I know many parents who are worried about the pressure that it puts on kids, and I will say I don't agree with testing kids this early, but as someone who does this every year, and I genuinely enjoy getting to do it, most kids don't think anything of it at all. Teachers will have done, or most teachers will have done several practice assessments throughout the year, which will be getting kids used to the way that they're done, how teachers aren't allowed to say anything to them during these assessments. In my class, the kids get really excited because it's a chance to show off their knowledge, and I put a huge emphasis on progress rather than score. And at the end of each assessment, whether it's real or not, I tell the kids what they've got, but much more importantly, I tell them how many more they got than last time and give them a huge amount of praise for any improvement at all. In fact, the smaller the jump, the bigger the praise I give, because it's usually taken our kids more effort to make that progress. And that's whether they've gone from 19 to 20 or whether they've gone from 33 to 34. So while it can seem worrying and stressful for our kids, most children will take it in their stride. And for those who are worried about it, I'm going to share some strategies a bit later on to help as well. The other worry that I hear a lot is, what if my child fails the phonics screening check? Lots of parents are understandably very, very worried that it might set their child back, or that it might mean that they struggle with their reading going forwards. I completely understand where this worry comes from. And I will always, always advocate for parents working with their children at home, because there's just too much of a time crunch at school for kids to get the input that they need from the teacher. Even in a classroom like mine, where my TA is the most amazing person in the world, she's a fantastic phonics teacher too, and we do 3 sessions a day with small groups. The one-to-one time that you can offer as a parent is completely invaluable. However, having said that, if your child does fail the phonics screening check, it is not a score that holds over at all. It's used by teachers to work out which children need more support next year, and puts them into additional into groups for additional interventions as well, to assure that when they go through their resit at this point of the year in year 2, they have all of that additional support needed and they've really got the functional skills of reading. That's it. And the final word that I hear a lot is, what if my child isn't a good reader? Or sorry, what if my child is a good reader, but they're not good at the test? Again, I have had a few kids like this who can read fluently and who have a good understanding, but they struggle to read individual words on their own, especially when it comes to alien words. The phonics screen check is not the be-all and end-all of reading. As I said earlier, it tests phonics knowledge and blending, but nothing else. If your child reads better in context, fantastic. That is what we want. That is the end goal of reading. We don't just want our kids reading without understanding. We want them to get information from reading, building their motivation and their desire to read more, and their understanding that reading is fantastic. It's not just recognizing words on the page. There's so much more to it, and that's the really good part. So if your child is a confident reader but not good at the test, the best thing you can do is help them to practice. Most kids, when it's explained that it's just a quick thing that the school has to do, so I tend to tell the kids that the government makes us do it, most of our kids will then do the test and show what they know, and we can practice assessments at home to help them get used to this and prepared for it as well. So what do our kids actually need to know? I'm going to go through a mock paper with you so that you can see exactly what our kids face and how it changes from page to page. So important things to note before we start are, there are 40 words that get progressively harder as we go on. 20 of these words are alien words, which means that they specifically test our children's blending skills, not their ability to remember words. Children who can read all 40 words have a functional reading skill, meaning that they can read almost any word. This doesn't mean that they understand it, to clarify. It just means that they can read it. They can sound out the letters and put them together. The pass mark for the last 12 years has been 32. This might change, so take it with a pinch of salt, but that has been the pass mark for a while now. There is absolutely no time limit on this. If children have short attention spans, they can get up, move around, take a break before they come back and carry on. I often get kids to jump around the room to refocus, or I used to get a couple of my kids to just shake their head because that would give them a second's break and then they'd come back to it. If this is something that you're worried about, that your child will find it hard to maintain focus, it's a really good idea to check with your child's teacher that they will be allowed to take a break. The reason I say this is they are allowed to take a break. It's in the rules, but you may want to just clarify that that's going to be okay, so that the teacher just takes it into account, that might be something that your child in particular is, they want to keep in mind for your child in particular. As a teacher, I have never had a problem with a parent saying, okay, can you just make sure that they take a break if they're getting stressed or anything like that. I certainly have a list of kids in my head right now that I know I will be taking extra breaks with during the check itself. Just to clarify, they can't leave the room during that time, but they can take quick breaks. And I have taken a lot of time with certain kids because they just need a bit of time. Having said this, the check usually takes between 5 and 10 minutes per child. That's it. So now I've gone through all of that. Please do pop any questions or any queries in the chat. Let me know if there's anything you want me to go over again, or you have clarification that you'd like me to do. And let's have a look at the actual test. So first up, we have basic CVC words. So these are 3-letter, 3-sound words that our children just have to blend. The first page is always a page of alien words. And you can tell they are alien words because they have an alien next to them. All our kids have to do is sound out the words and blend them together. I really, really recommend encouraging your child to sound out every word, even if they are a confident reader or their school doesn't encourage this, because this will help them check for mistakes. So for example, I would encourage you to get them to say f, ot, fot, etc. The other thing to note is the final one on this page always starts with a vowel and then has 2 consonants after it. So even though it's a 3-letter word, it's a slightly more challenging one because it has an adjacent consonant in it. But most children seem to be all right on this. The next stage involves digraphs. So these are 2 letters that make 1 sound. So for example, in these pages, we have th, sh, u, qu, or th, k, or ch, e. There you go. Those are all the digraphs. Our kids need to spot them within the word and then sound out the whole word. This time we have one page of alien words and one page of real words. I should point out that we're going to look at the adjacent consonant section in a second, but all 3 pages of alien words are done in one go. And then we have the 2 pages of the real words in the actual check. But I wanted to show you that these 2 pages focus on the same thing. So you will have one page that focuses on digraphs of alien words and one page of real words that focuses on digraphs. Next, we move on to one of our hardest things for our children to grasp, which is adjacent consonants. Now, this is the most common reading roadblock that I see in year 1, and often the children who were confident readers in reception stumble on these words. So this is because their blending skill isn't strong enough yet, and it's tricky for them to put 2 consonants together because they can't hear how it's supposed to sound. If your child struggles with these, they are most likely to read words like clap as cap. So k-l-ap becomes cap because they can't move between those consonant sounds. They can't go k-l. It's too hard for them. Later, we're going to go over a few activities to help your child if they struggle with this. And as I say, within the Phonics Check Club, there's a whole week that focuses just on adjacent consonants. So if you've done the mini pre-assessment, and you know that this is something your child finds tricky, I would go to that week and spend some time working on those activities and working on that practice as well. So how does this show up within the check? The next 2 pages will still have digraphs in them, but they will also include adjacent consonants. Again, the best thing that our kids can do is sound out each sound before blending. So d, r, I, dry, f, l, arm, flam. This will help them spot where an adjacent consonant is and where it might be a digraph as well. So what we tend to see, in fact, it's being quite nice to us here, in one of the other checks, there's one that is flam. Not that exact word, but you have an R and then an A. And a lot of children switch those around because they spot it. They think, oh, that's a digraph. It's not. It's the wrong way around. So that is just something to keep in mind. As with the digraph page, there's one page of alien words and one page of real words for our kids to read as well. And incredibly, by the end of this section, our kids are already halfway through the check. So they've done 3 pages of alien words and 2 pages of real words. And if your child is able to recognize all of the phase 3 digraphs, so if they have ended reception knowing all of their sounds and they are able to blend adjacent consonants, chances are they'll have got 20 points out of 20 without even thinking about it. If you want to check, because most of you are in the club, if you want to check which sounds your child knows and which ones they don't, the Phonics Sound Assessment Form is perfect for that. And I will go through that in more detail at the end. Just make sure you all know where it is. So the next stage focuses on what your child will have covered in year 1 specifically. So the second half of the check is focused on the harder level of reading. This is where we add in more ways of spelling sounds, such as AI/AY. As I say, this is what year 1 focuses on, so your child will have done a lot of this already, but it's a really good idea to practice spotting these flashcards and practice playing games where you have a focused sound and a few different ways of spelling it as well. This way, your child can practice reading every variation while still having the support of knowing what sound they are looking for. So again, it's sort of helping them spot that sound within words, which often kids find quite tricky. As you can see, while we've included the new trickier sounds in this next section of the phonics screen, we've still got adjacent consonants, we've still got a few digraphs from the previous section too. In this half of the check, we have 2 pages of alien words together, and then we have 3 pages of real words. You might also have noticed one specific thing that your child might be struggling with, which is a subsection of the alternative sounds words. Split digraphs. Hands up if your child has ever found split digraphs hard. Almost every child in my class. Split digraphs are also in this section, and there's usually quite a few of them. And lots of children struggle to spot and remember split digraphs, which is another reason why it is such a good idea to get our kids to sound out every single word, because they will then be more likely to spot and correct any errors that they say before they say the full word. So as a quick explanation for anyone who wants it, a split digraph is where the letter E changes the vowel sound within the word. So for example, without the E, this would be k-ap, cap. You add the E on, and instead of it becoming k-ap, cape, it becomes k-ape, cape. Very quick note, this only works if there's just one letter between the vowel and the E. If there's more than one, it blocks magic E, and the children, I tell the children that he can't reach, so it doesn't work. That's the rule I give them. So we have a couple of split digraphs in with the alien words and the alternative sounds, and we will have some with the real words as well. So I just wanted to give you an example of how I tend to see kids sound these out during the check. So for example, we have this one here. Most children in my class will go z, a, l, e. Oh, that's magic E. Z, a, l, zale. That is fine. That is absolutely great. They are very welcome to correct themselves as many times as they would like during the check and still be marked correctly. So I do sometimes get kids who will say zale and then correct themselves to zale, and that's absolutely fine. I can still mark that correct. So don't worry if your child does that. The only thing I cannot do as a teacher, well, I can't really do anything as a teacher. I cannot tell them to try it again. I can't tell them to go back over it. I can't give them any clues at all. I tend to joke with the kids. I'm going to sit there and pretend that I'm really mean and give them really evil faces. I never do. The kids in my class find it very funny. But they know that I can't tell them whether they've got it right or not. So they've got to trust themselves. And if they think they've got it wrong, they can go back and correct. The only other thing to add in is if they said, for example, zale, and then they went back and corrected and said zale, I would have to mark it wrong because I have to take their final answer, whatever that is. So just so you're aware, if your child says it one way and then the other, as long as they finish with the correct answer, great, we love that. There are also several real words, both with alternative sounds and split digraphs. Again, my recommendation would be to sound out the words or even put lines under the digraphs while they're practicing so that they don't miss any sounds. So for example, get them to put a line under the A sound, put a line under the split digraph so they know it's an I, get them to practice it. Some of these words are easier than you might assume. So scram and spoilt, for example, are both words that you might be able to read at the end of reception. There will be a variety of words throughout the section. Most of them will focus on what your child has learned in year 1, but they do take some from earlier sections as well, like props. Your child should be able to read that by at least the winter term of year 1. The final page, or sometimes 2 pages, depending on the check, are the hardest because they focus on multisyllabic words. That means words with more than one syllable. Many children struggle with these because they can't blend that many sounds together at once. So instead of saying p, a, n, ik, panic, they then say p, a, n, ik, pick, because they forget the sounds in it. The first thing I will say about this section is that if your child has everything else secure except for this, don't worry too much. As I said earlier, the pass mark is 32, and these tend to be over the last 2 pages. So obviously, we want our kids to be secure in all areas of reading so that they are functional readers and that they can fly with their reading. But if this is the only area that they struggle with, chances are that they will still pass the test based off everything else they have. However, I'm still going to make sure that you know how to support your kids with this, because there are a lot of multisyllabic words in the world and we want our kids to read them. So the best thing that you can do with multisyllabic words is get your child to sound out 3 words at a time. Sorry, 3 sounds at a time. Get your words right, Jen. This way, they're not having to do any more than they already have. They're just sounding and blending. They are just remembering the word that it blended before, and then they're squishing it together. So for example, panic becomes p, a, n. Pan, glue it in your head. Pan, ick, ick, ick. Pan, ick. Panic, correct. Second becomes sek, sek, ond, second, second, brilliant. Both of these are much easier to blend together and less intimidating to our kids. Now, you may be tempted to get them to split this up depending on syllable. I'm going to recommend you don't. While we as adults can look at that and go, we know where that syllable is, brilliant. We only know that because we can read the word. Our kids are coming to this blind. They don't necessarily know the word beforehand. If they do, fab. But if they don't, they need a strategy that they can do independently without being told where the syllable breaks. So that's why I teach 3 sounds at a time. So whatever the word is, let's say it's going to be caterpillar. That would then break down into k, at, cat, p, p, l, l. Cat, p, l. it's much easier for your child to blend it automatically and blend it independently than if they are trying to work out where that the syllable is. It's just, one basic rule that they can just follow. And just like that, shockingly enough, we have reached the end of the test. So 40 words that get harder as your child goes through them. If you do have any questions at all, please pop them in the chat. But now we're going to go over what you can do to help in 2 specific instances to build their confidence and their reading skills as well. Please do pop them in the chat. I'm here to help as much as I possibly can, so please do let me know. So I'm just going to take a quick drink, just to give you a chance to type in the chat, or if you're watching on replay, to type a message to me as well. So for most parents, the biggest worry is that their little ones will be anxious. We've seen a massive rise in anxiety since COVID, even still now. And I've definitely seen it in my classroom as well, to the point where teaching mindfulness is just another part of the day. The phonics screen check can be nerve-wracking, especially if you have a child who is prone to perfectionism or who struggles with getting things wrong. The first thing that I will say is that for most teachers, this is not the first time that they have done this. Chances are your child will have done this test several times already this year as mock checks. They'll have gone to a different room, or to the specific room that your child will be going to. They will have had a go at this challenge, and most teachers will have tried to make it as fun and as calming as possible. I, as I said earlier, personally joke with my class that it's really scary and that I'm going to become the mean teacher. I'm not Miss Shaw anymore, I'm mean Miss Shaw. And then they laugh at me because they all know that I'm joking. And then when they take the test, they get the added benefit of being like, I knew you were joking. That wasn't scary at all. That was really fun. And then they bounce out of the classroom thinking that I'm very silly, which then gives them a positive outlook. And then the next time that we go and do the test, I say exactly the same thing. And they're like, oh, Miss Shaw's joking. It's just a fun test. It's not difficult at all. Now, I know this won't work for every child or for every classroom. And there are definitely some kids for whom I explain the process and I explain the fact that I'm not looking for them to be perfect. I just want to see how much they know. This is a tool for me, not for them. But you know your child best, so you can talk to your child about it however works for them. For some children, that might mean not talking about it at home at all, and instead just playing a few fun games, doing a couple of mock checks in fun ways, I'll talk about in a second, to get them practicing and not talking about it. For others, that might be talking them through it, making sure that you know from the teacher what they're going to do. It might be that you just say the morning of, oh, I want to know how well you did on your check today. I'm really excited to see what brilliant progress you've made. I would recommend focusing on progress rather than result, if you can. Simply because that then it switches the focus, particularly if you have a perfectionist child who really struggles with getting things wrong, because it switches it from being there's a right or a wrong answer to being I'm really proud of your hard work. And that's not something that you can qualify. So if a child gets 19 and goes up to 22, that usually has taken a huge amount of hard work. So even though they haven't passed the check, they have put their best effort in. So giving the praise of I'm so impressed with how hard you worked on that means that they get to feel really proud of themselves. And you're taking out the pass fail of it for our kids, which, we don't want our kids to feel under pressure or like this is a massive deal for them, because it's not. It's really not. It won't go on their permanent record. You will get information about it, definitely in your end of term report. Most teachers will tell you at least pass fail before that. Yeah, it's just from my perspective, it's quite a fun thing that I get to do with the kids each year. Another way to combat anxiety that your child, I've already said this actually, is progress, not perfection. The check is a chance for our kids to show what they have achieved, and if you are able to reinforce that at home, that's really, really helpful, really beneficial. Praising your child's effort every time they read a few words rather than praising how much they got right, particularly when you're doing mock checks at home, can really help shift the focus away from perfect and help them avoid that anxiety. Because there's no such thing as perfection. And I say this to the kids all the time, practice makes progress. Practice makes progress, because there isn't perfection. You can never be perfect. Even if you get 40 out of 40, you're never going to be a perfect reader. It just doesn't exist. So if you can encourage your child to recognize that practice makes progress, fantastic. Tying into the previous two, practicing the check at home can be a really good way to help your child overcome any anxiety that they might have as well. I will talk about this a bit more in a second, but using the structure of the check to help your child settle in to doing it is a great way of reducing anxiety and building up confidence. We can start by doing sets of 4 words at a time and getting your child to read those 4 at a time before switching on to the next set. As well as adding into into any reading games or that you're already playing, or whatever. One of my favourite games, for example, is Before the Bomb, where the kids in my class have 5 minutes to read as many words as possible. We sit in a circle and we all read as fast as we possibly can. As we get nearer to the test, so everyone gets 1 word and round they go. Each reader gets a sheet of words, a sheet of 4 words, rather than just the 1 word. And then they have to pass the bomb on to the next child. This helps them build stamina and feel like it's just another game that I get them to play. The other benefit of playing it this way is I can give each child their own words. So for some children, they may be able to have a slow read through it first, check it, and then read it and say it. For other children, they may be able to, I might just give it to them in that second, and then they have to read it rapidly. It also means that I can choose what level of reading our kids are at. So if they are someone who is particularly anxious, I can give them really simple mock checks. And if they're more advanced, I could give them multisyllabic words, for example. And finally, another really, really good thing that you can do is let your child's teacher know that they are feeling anxious. If you can grab them at the end of the day and just let them know that your little one has mentioned being worried at home, it is really useful for us teachers. We can put things in place to support, from showing them the room they're going to be taking the assessment in, to giving them a few extra practices a few times a week that will help them ease into that check, and then anything else that they might want to help them feel more relaxed as well. I know it's not always easy to talk to your teacher, and there often feels like a bit of a divide there. But if you can, fantastic. Even a quick email to the office that they can forward through, brilliant. The more your teacher knows, the more they can do to help. And I will say, as a teacher, any parent who comes and talks to me, I am really, really grateful for that, because we don't get enough time to chat between you and I as parents and teachers. And I think that is a fundamental flaw of the education system, because you know your child better than anyone. So I can only benefit from knowing what your view is of this whole situation. So if you can chat to your teacher, fantastic. And if not, do get in contact with me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. So let's get on to the nitty gritty. What is it that you can do at home to help your child prepare? I mentioned in the last section about practicing 4 words at a time. Not only is this great for your child's confidence as it mimics the test, but just the act of reading those 4 words is practicing their reading too. If you can have 4 words on the breakfast table when they come down the stairs, as well as all the reading that you would already be doing with them from their phonics books, etc., you are giving them that little extra boost to help them make progress. You can absolutely change these words up so that they match the sound your child is working on, or pick them randomly to encourage your child to read. No problem. I would recommend getting your child to sound and blend the words, even if they already know the word. The reason for this is that they are then practicing those blending skills, which will help when they come across a word that they're not familiar with, which is the only thing this test practices or checks for. Another thing that I'd suggest is to practice the sounds that your child struggles with. Your teacher should be able to say which sounds your child finds tricky, but you can also use the Phonics Sounds assessment form from the Phonics Check Club to run through and check the ones that your child knows and the ones that they are less sure of as well. Then you can make your own flashcards with those focus letters. There are obviously the ones in the Phonics Club as well, but I literally just use little post-it notes and I write the sounds on them. And then I have them in my pocket or I stick them around the house. Great. Whenever you get a second, and I really genuinely do mean a second, show your child the card. What's that sound? What's that sound? Okay, brilliant, off we go. That's it, literally that activity. This helps your child to build recognition and speed. And if you do it in lots of different places as well, so in the bathroom, in the living room, on the way to school, in the park, it helps with situational awareness too, so that they remember it everywhere, not just in the kitchen when they're reading their book. Blending. If you know that your child is finding blending tricky, now is a great time to work on that. My absolute favourite blending activity is literally just blending on the go. Choose a word a couple of times a day and sound it out instead of saying it. Encourage your child to work out what the word says. So you need to put your b, k, s in your bag. Can you grab your p, r, o, j, e, k, t? And you can do it with any word, though I would recommend maybe starting with shorter ones and building it up, particularly if you know, for example, your child is struggling with adjacent consonants. Would you like I, l, k on your cereal, for example? It can be a bit tricky when you first start breaking these words down, but it's literally just try and pause after every single sound. And if you don't quite get it right, don't worry. You're still training your child's ears to get most of those sounds there. The only thing I will say is if you can remember to do the sound, not the letters. So for example, shoes has 3 sounds. Shoes. It's not shoes or s or s. It can be really hard when you first start doing this, so don't worry if it feels tricky. Just any sounds that you can break down. Even if you're going, can you put on your shoes? Great, because your child is having to blend those 2 sounds together. Great. The reason this activity is particularly good is because it puts the words in context, which then gives your child the support to work it out, but it also requires them to use that part of their brain that focuses on blending to work out what you're saying as well. So you're sort of what we would call in teaching scaffolding their learning. Another great one, particularly for those adjacent consonants, is to choose 2 consonant sounds and challenge your child to say both together quickly. For anyone who's not sure, a consonant is anything that isn't a vowel. So vowels are A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, or A, any digraph that starts with a vowel. Great. Consonants are everything else. So B, C, D, F, G. I'm not going to go through them all. But choose 2 and see if your child can put them together. For example, ulk. Can you put those ones together? Ulk. How fast can you say them? Ulk. Brilliant. Can you put together How fast can you put them together? Brilliant. So you're just training the speed of the consonants. And not all of them will be easy because not all consonant sounds do go together, but it's a good chance for them to practice. And it's helpful because they're not trying to form the full word, they're just practicing putting those 2 sounds together. Other things you can do is work on real and alien words through online games like Phonics Play. Phonics Play is, to my knowledge, still free to use. I've been using it quite regularly, but things change and I don't know. They do a great one called Ob and Bob, which is one of my favourites, where the kids have to sound out the words and then choose if it's real or alien. It's another good way of getting them to do just a little bit of extra reading practice. It's still quite fun to do. So Ob is an alien words. Bob has a real name, so it's real words. It's the idea. And then finally, check with your teacher if there's any specific area that they need to work on or if they can give you any resources to help. I know that it's not always possible for them to do, being a teacher myself, because with 30 kids in the class and everything else that a teacher has to cover, getting individual activities together often is just not practical. But you might find that your teacher is able to say a few things to you to try off the bat, or at least give you specific ideas of what to work on with your little one. And also, as I've said before, from a teacher's perspective, it is so wonderful to know that parents want to help at home. If I know that, chances are I will do my best to find the time to give you additional activities and resources, even if that means that I'm doing that after this masterclass late at night. You as parents have a much bigger impact on your child's education than teachers do, weird though that might sound. And you can work on it with your child on a one-to-one basis or one-to-few if you have more than one child, and go with them as they're learning. You know them so much better than any teacher ever will. So you know how to encourage them, you know how to get the best out of them and how to support them as well. Anything that you do to help your kids is huge and will have an amazing impact on them going forward as well. So to recap everything that we've talked about so far, we talked about the phonics screen check, what it is and why it can be nerve-wracking for us as parents and for carers and for teachers too. We went through what our kids have to know to pass the phonics screen check and how it builds in difficulty over time, from CVC words to adjacent consonants to split digraphs to multisyllabic words. We talked about how we can build our kids' confidence and a few things that you can do to help at home to help them prepare and feel secure about sitting the check too. And then finally, we went through a few things that you can do to help them improve on the areas that they struggle in and how you can help them boost their score over the next 8 weeks as well. So now that we've been through what the check is and a few ways to support your child, I'm going to take you through the Phonics Check Club and show you all of the resources and all of the extras that you have access to that makes this a lot easier, is the idea. I know there are a couple of you watching on replay who haven't joined the club yet, and if you feel like you've got enough to be getting on with, that is absolutely great. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a great time supporting your child. If, however, you want to know more about the Phonics Check Club and maybe come and join us inside, stick around and I will show you what you can get, or what's inside even. So to recap, first off, when you open up your portal, you click on the link and open your portal, this is the one that you're going to be looking for. If you're part of the Raising Readers community, obviously you will have absolutely everything, including an extra one here, which I uploaded earlier this week. But if you're just part of the Phonics Check Club, this is the one that you want, the Phonics Check Champions. So just click on that, and that will take you through to the main page. So for this main page, this will be sort of, if you're on your phone, this will just be wherever, like straight on the screen. If you're on your laptop, it's slightly down towards that side. But you have straight away quite a few different things to look at. First off, you have what is the Phonics screen check. That will be this masterclass replay. So if you want to go back over it and read anything or check on anything, you can. Then you have the baseline test assessment. So this is the first practice paper. I had some feedback on that already, and I have added an audio recording of me going through every single word, so you can check what I would mark correct. I will give that a little bit of a pinch of salt, because different schools teach sounds slightly differently. I've tried to include everywhere that might be a variation, but you might occasionally find that there's one or two that are slightly different. Then you have your phonics sounds assessment form. That is the other really, really valuable part, because that will cover all of the phonic sounds that your child will have learned. So let's go through those bits in a bit more detail. So the phonics sounds assessment form is really, really valuable, and I would highly recommend trying to find 5 minutes just to go through this with your child. I would literally, don't worry about the name of the letter for now. This has come from the Raising Readers community, so we work a little bit more on capitals and names of letters and things. But for now, literally just run your finger underneath the sounds and get your child to say them. So I would say, I literally, and I use this with my own kids in my class and in my one-to-ones, and I say, okay, I'm going to show you a sound. You need to tell me what the sound is. Off we go. And they go, sat, p, d, g, ok. So, and so on and so forth. And as we go, I just tick. Or I make a note of the ones that they haven't got and I put a dot in that one. Great. The use of this is you will find which ones your child knows and which ones your child is still working on. The only thing to be slightly wary of is when you get to what's called phase 6, that's year 2. So if your child doesn't know all the phase 6 sounds, don't worry, we haven't covered them yet. Some schools will have done some of them by this point. Some schools won't have done any. My school doesn't do any, and it doesn't affect the kids at all. But yes, this is quite useful, because if, say, you notice that your child is struggling with B and D, for example, you can make sure that you have flashcards of each one and just focus on doing that. Then you have the first phonics screening check. Take it easy. Don't worry about pressure. Make a note of their school. That's it. I know some of you have done that already, and we've got some amazing schools already. Fantastic. But I would just get my child to sit down. I tend to say to them, okay, can you just come over here for a minute? I've got something I need you to do just for 5 minutes. I need to check how you're doing with your reading. So we're just going to read all of these words. Off you go. And I tend to get them to sound them out. I can, at this point, I would recommend, if your child gets twitchy after 3 pages, stop, make a note of how much they got in that bit, let them go and play, bring them back the next day or 20 minutes later, do another bit until they get twitchy, send them off. This is not one where they have to stay and do all of it in one go. Feel free to take your time. Feel free to go at your child's pace. The idea is we want an idea of which words they make a mistake on, and whether you notice that they're all lumped into one area. So let's say your child manages all of the first 3 pages easily, but then they stumble over an adjacent consonant. And then they stumble over another one later down the line, or they stumble over another one. And you're suddenly like, oh, we need to work on adjacent consonants. If you are unsure of what errors your child has made, that's what our Facebook group is for. So you can absolutely post anonymously, or you can DM me. So if you're not in our Facebook group, I have added that into the replay email for the Phonics Check Club. Join the Facebook group. You can either post in there, or you can send a message to me directly saying, Jen, what is up? What do you notice any correlation between these words? And I'll let you know what I see, and therefore what you might need to work on. But the idea is, it's just a baseline, help us see what our children are confident in and what they need to work on. Then we have the next section. So you've got all the flashcards, all the words, and all the phonics checks. So this is all the resources from the rest of it, all in one place. So all you need to do is just click on what you want and download them all quickly. So if you wanted all the flashcards, they are all there. If you wanted all the phonics checks, they are all there. I've also included in the phonics checks some of the voice recordings. I am working on it, but I was trying to work on them late last night, and my words just weren't coming out right. So I will work on that throughout the rest of the week. Just looking at a comment, I struggle with the difference between f and f, for example, as in actually checking my child is sounding it out correctly. They're exactly the same sound. So f and f are the same. It's just a double letter. Double F tends to come on the end of a word. I tell the kids because it gets lonely. So there isn't a difference. That's a really good thing to clarify. But yeah, if they're reading great. If you have an accent, so I live in Southfields, but I teach in Chessington, and we call it the Chessington accent. Our kids say like th, and that's fine. I can tick that correct. As long as it's in your child's accent, that will be fine. So, for example, if you listen to one of the voice recordings, I've said graph because I'm posh. I have a Southerner's accent. I sounded out graph, and then I said graph because that's what it is in my accent. Either graph or graph, I would mark correct for my kids because it depends on the accent. So if you're finding that you say a word slightly differently, don't worry too much. That is something that teachers are allowed to take into account. And that's another thing to say. If your child has speech and language, your teacher is allowed to take that into account. So I've had several children, many children with speech and language over the years. Over the course of that year, I will have learned how they pronounce certain sounds. So when they then do the check, I know whether they've got that right or not. I know whether they've read that correctly or not. So I can then check that off. That is one of the benefits of having your child's teacher do the check. In some bigger schools, that isn't an option, which may make it harder for your child. If that is the case, I would just run that by your child's teacher. Your child's teacher will be advocating for them massively. If they're not, I know there are one or two bad apples, but I have advocated for kids before where I've not been allowed to do the check in much bigger schools than the one I'm currently in. And I've gone over the check with them. I've listened to the recording and been like, no, she's got that. She hasn't got that one, but she's got that one. This is how she pronounces this sound. I've literally sat down and said, this is how this has affected this child. And they have then passed the check. So don't worry if your child has a speech difficulty as well. So yeah, all phonics screen checks are there. That was a really helpful question. Thanks, Jen. We then have 8 weeks of activities and sessions to help your child build confidence. I have created 8 weeks because we have 8 weeks until the check. I would not recommend going through each week one at a time. Chances are your child will not need to do CBC because they'll have done that already. If you find that they do, no problem at all. I know there are some people who are using this from a home educating standpoint. You have as much time as you want to use this. I'm not going to close it off to you. I'm not going to chuck you out. So do feel free to go back, use whatever you want, no problem. However, if you have done the baseline check, and you notice that actually your child's great at CBC, they're great at digraphs, they're great at adjacent consonants, but they are working on alternative sounds, no problem. Skip straight to week 4. You don't need to wait until that point. The idea is you have as much time. I've broken it into 8 weeks with the idea that you can move around and work on what you need to work on when you need to work on it. That's also why we have a closing gap week, so you have a bit more time just to practice, just to make it fun, just to make sure your child's confident as well. But to take you through what each week looks like and to take you through week 1 as well, you have a video talking through all of the activities and the games, first off, and also explaining what to do for everything. You also have the flashcards. So for the CBC flashcards, these are all the single letter flashcards, excluding the letter Q, because Q on its own does not make a sound. It only makes a sound with the letter U next to it, so that becomes Qu in the English language. But you have all those flashcards. You then also have a bunch of activities to try, like can you practice using the middle vowel? Because that's often the hardest one. That's quite a good one for if your child is struggling with writing as well. That's a good game to play. So as I say, you've got these activities now, you can absolutely use them for other things as well. And then you also have a mock check. This will have both alien and real words in it to ensure that your child can practice them and get used to the style of it. So again, I would use as many of the mock checks as you feel you wish to. I wouldn't necessarily trim these up. I have words further down the line that you can cut up and stick around the house. I would try and keep these in sets of 4 and encourage your child to read them in sets of 4 if you can, just to get them used to it. Heather says, our main issue is adding extra sounds in, for example, props was pronounced sprops and herks was pronounced shirks. Any tips? Yes, so that is weirdly quite a common one. For the baseline assessment, that is a really, really good thing to notice, and well done for doing so. What I would then do is take the mock checks, and when they're doing mock checks and your little one says the word incorrectly, get them to go, I would literally go, oh, can you try that again? I think another letter snuck in. What a sneaky letter. I would put the blame on the letter, not on the child, firstly. But I would then say, oh, yeah, oh, let's sound that out. Oh, can you hear what sound I'm saying? What's sound I'm saying that isn't there? Sp, r, op, sprops. Which letter did I say? And if you've got your finger under the word and going through it, your child will go, there's no S there. You said S, but there isn't an S. And you go, oh, brilliant. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that mistake. Can you help me? Can you sound it out? P, r, op, s, props. If your child is doing that specifically with adjacent consonants, which I don't think they are because you're saying shirks. Was it shirks or was it shirks? Just out of interest. Because if it's changing a digraph, you want to be checking that he knows or she knows that it's an H, is a H sound, and just checking that. Sh digraph, brilliant, thank you. So what I would do is just get the flashcard and the flashcard sh, and get them to make sure that there isn't a slight error there, because this could be two separate issues. The props is adding in an extra letter. The shirks is mistaking a sound. And again, did they sound it out correctly and then say the wrong word? Just out of interest. You don't have to answer any of this, please be aware. But it's one of those ones where it's sort of, we have to look at each word individually. But that would be my recommendation, is as you're going through the mock checks, if you're seeing these things pop up, go over them again and be like, oh, I'm really impressed with how many of these you've read. Can we just check this sound? Don't worry. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that could just be a blending thing. We just want to practice adjacent consonants because they're trying to remember so many sounds with those adjacent consonants in that they're adding in extra ones because they've slightly forgotten. So that's not a problem at all. I have seen that happen with quite a few kids. I tend to just go back over the individual sounds that they've made mistakes on, point out get them to point out which sounds they've added in, and then see if they can do it on their own. I would also, if it is just those words, do feel free, Heather, to message me with any other words that you noticed or that they found tricky, and we can go through together and see if it is an adjacent consonant thing. Just it will be confidence based, I think. But yeah, this is why we're doing this, to make sure we can keep practicing. That's really, really good to ask and to know, because I know lots of people will be asking that, so thank you. Okay, so yeah, we've got the mock checks as well. These tend to be the most valuable because our kids haven't seen it like this before. I use these in my classroom. I don't let the kids leave until they've read 4 words out of my classroom door. And it does get them just in the zone, in the routine of it, and used to doing it. Weeks 1 to 6 have a different focus, as I say. So it starts with the basic, builds up. And as I've already said, pick and choose the ones that work for you. If you want to spend 3 weeks working on digraphs, great. If you only need to spend 1 week working on split digraphs, great. It's not designed, it is designed to, but the idea is that you get to do whatever works for you. And again, the baseline phonics check is a good way, as I've seen several people have already done, fantastic, of spotting any errors that you might want to clarify. Then we have a recap week in week 7. This is a chance for you to make sure that there are no gaps and that your child is confident. You will also notice the mock checks for this. There's so many sheets. I am not expecting your child to go through them in one go. What we have done is we've got a few different activities that are designed to get your child reading 4 words at a time. So within the mock checks, there is every single sound that your child could possibly come across in the phonics screening. That's why there are so many of them. So feel free, print them out, or scribble them on a piece of paper, whatever works. I tend to print both on single pieces of paper, so they end up really tiny. But that does then mean that I can not use as much paper. But you're then making sure that your child can recognize and spot every single word, every single sound. And if you come across one that you notice they have made a mistake on, you can underline it, you can make a note, you can add it to your flashcards and use the previous week's activities just to support that as well. And then week 8 is our practice and prepare. So these ones are all real checks. So the 2013 one is the baseline that we've already done, but you've got the 14, 15 and 16 real checks there as well as some additional practice activities. It's just, again, these ones I would try and encourage your child to do all in one go. But this, well, if you've done it week on week, which I'm not expecting you to do, this would come up in the first week of June. So it would be the week before the check. So you can then do, on Monday, let's sit down and do a practice paper. On Wednesday, let's sit down and do a practice paper. On Friday, let's sit down and do a practice paper. It's only going to take us 5 minutes. Oh my gosh, I can see how strong your scores are. I'm so impressed with how much progress you've made. So lots and lots of praise for the progress again. And then you can feel confident that when they go in on Monday, they've already done these checks. Brilliant. The only thing I would say, just as an extra addition, is when you do them, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do them in different places in the house. So on Monday, do it in the kitchen. On Tuesday, do it on Wednesday, do it in the garden. On Friday, do it in bed. Maybe not in bed, but you know what I mean. Because you're then benefiting their, it's not spatial awareness, situational awareness, there we go, which means that their brain is able to do it in multiple different places. Because what we tend to see with some kids is they can do it in one place, but they forget about it as soon as they move, which is very normal, but we want to make sure we can cover that if we can. So that is absolutely everything within the check. I am, just in case anyone hasn't joined yet, because I know some people from my school are here. If you do want to join the club, there is the link to do that. But I know most of you are there already, and if you haven't joined the Facebook group, if you are in the club and you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do come and ask me any questions that you have. If you do have any questions, pop them in the chat. What I'm going to do is run through my outro, stop the recording, just in case anyone has any private questions that they want to ask. Just before I finish, is there a national percentage pass rate for the phonics screening check? Does the government provide an average like they do with GCSEs? Accordingly, do schools provide a percentage pass rate? I don't know if schools provide them. We know them as teachers. It is a point of pride that mine is so high. Last year's percentage was 80%, up from 79% last year. The schools do, there is a national pass rate, and it has gone up every year. The first year it was 53%. We didn't do a check over during COVID, so that's the only year I don't think there's data for, maybe the second year as well. But there is a national pass rate. But I don't think schools, I don't know if schools publish their own like they do with SATs. Most teachers can probably tell you their pass rate, or at least tell you if they're above the national pass rate, because we're all pretty smug about it, to be honest. But yeah, so I hope that's answered. That's a really good question, Valley. Thank you. So I always start with, oh, sorry, is it just the class teacher that scores the screen check, or do the scores need to be verified? No. So what can happen? It might not be the class teacher that does the check, firstly. If you're in a big school, it might be the head of English or the head of phonics that does the check. What does tend to happen is the head teacher or whoever is the moderator of the school. So I work in a very small school. I'm a one form entry, so it's just me teaching year one. Yay, which I love. My head teacher is my moderator. So she comes at some point during the 2 days that we run this, and she will sit in on a couple of my assessments just to make sure that I am playing by the book and I'm doing it correctly. It doesn't get moderated by anyone else. The kids don't get recorded or anything like that. Most of the time teachers are trusted, which is great. I've never had anyone question anything on mine. Yeah, so it's normally just whoever is scoring it, and that's it. But if there is an error made, it's very rare for an error to be made because it's not a massively tricky check. If you've done phonics, if you've taught phonics for a year, the phonics screen check is easy to check whether your child's got it right or not. Yeah, I hope that's answered your question, Jem. So yeah, I always end with, if you can take just one thing away to try, because it's much easier to think of one thing, please do write it down or pop it in the comments, pop it in the Facebook group if you want to, but it's much easier to think of just one thing to take away and try. And if the one I would recommend is practice makes progress, because that is a really, really valuable thing for our kids to know. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming, particularly in the middle of the holidays. I do appreciate it. If you want to come along again next week, I'm running it on Tuesday the 22nd, probably at 12, but I will probably do an assessment of when works for most people. Yeah, I'll run it again. Please feel free to come along again if you have any questions, if anything pops up. If anything pops up in the meantime, you have access to me, email, Facebook group. Let me know your thoughts, let me know any questions, and I hope you have a really lovely time practicing this, because I genuinely enjoy doing the phonics screen check. I love getting to see kids' progress, and I love this 8 weeks before it, where you can really see the kids get confident with the check and feel really great about getting to show off how much the progress they've made. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along, and I will hopefully see you in the phonics group. Bye.